Okay. Hi, and welcome to Paratalk One-on-One. I'm your host, Hazel Evans, and today we have a special guest. He's an author, paranormal investigator, as well as a TV personality, Richard Estep. Thank you for being here with me today talking about haunted hospitals.
Thanks for inviting me, Hazel. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, because I know you are super busy. You're always traveling and getting those books done.
Yeah, that's true. I just got back from the East Coast and I have a couple of weeks at home and then it starts all over again.
Wow. Okay, so Richard, I know that you have gone to many locations, and I want to specifically talk about the hospitals because I really do find it fascinating. I have been to a few asylums as well as hospitals myself, but we're talking about you and your paranormal experiences today. So, is there any hospital in particular that stands out to you as being like really active?
Well, from personal experience, I would say the number one in my career has been the old Tooele Valley Hospital in Tooele, Utah. That's where I've spent most of my time, and I'm kind of biased because I spend every Halloween there with fellow paranormal investigators. We take over the place really for a week and research the haunting. And the reason we do that is because it's now a full contact Halloween haunted house. They took a
Okay.
hospital that was abandoned and it was bought, purchased, and turned into a full contact haunted house. So through, I would say, 9 or 10 months of the year, it's a fairly quiet place. But when
Right.
Halloween starts to roll around, September, October, you get hundreds and then thousands of people that all come through with this for this experience of being scared. I mean, you have to
Right.
sign a waiver to go in. They will grab you, they will put you in coffins, they will move you around, they will put you on operating tables, and all of the equipment in there is original.
Oh, wow.
When the hospital was closed, they just shut the doors and left. They left X-ray equipment. They left all the original beds. All of even the biohazard needle containers were left full. They had to
Oh my
open.
gosh.
Yeah. So the atmosphere in that place is just incredible. And once the last visitor goes home at midnight, my team of investigators and I have the whole hospital to ourselves, and that's when we research the haunting.
Right. And how long do y'all usually stay there when you do go? I mean, this is over time or just like one night and then.
Oh, we'll move in for 3, 4, 5 usually days. And the owners are good friends of ours. A big shout out to those guys, to Kim and Cammy and Dusty. They allow us to participate in the haunt first. So you'll see me dressed up as some surgeon from hell, covered in blood, grabbing people, pushing them through the haunt. I'll do that for 4 or 5 hours, and
Right.
then I usually won't even change. So I'll keep on the scrubs, and we'll break out the equipment at midnight, and then for all those nights, we'll investigate because the energy that's generated when you have that many frightened people coming through the building, it's just like a ready power supply for
Right.
spirits that want to come out and manifest.
Right. Now, do you believe that using all that equipment, all that original equipment being there also amplifies the energy?
I think 100% it does. Generally speaking, there are three types of a haunting. You have haunted people, haunted places, and haunted objects. And at this location, you have a haunted place, of course, but you have all of those objects that have retained the energy over the years of the patients that have interacted with them. And the staff
Right.
members too. I mean, one of the spirits that's very active there is a former X-ray technician. And based on EVP communications, this gentleman still is active at that hospital because he loved his job. It was one of his favorite places in life. And either he hasn't left or he drops back in when he feels like it, or possibly just some part of him was left behind and is willing to interact with visitors.
Wow. Wow, that's fascinating. Um, have you had any negative experience at that particular hospital?
I've had one. By far, the more common is with the female investigators because there is an entity there known as the Guardian, and it's a very grandiose name. But this was said to be somebody who worked there during his lifetime and was very much about getting gossip on people. He liked to know supposedly who was sleeping with who, who was, less than honest and who was less than competent, and he liked to try and blackmail people. And he has a particular affinity for trying to frighten women. So
Wow.
there are many stories of women being pushed, shoved, and scratched in what's called the Guardians area of the hospital. And the ladies that are my fellow investigators, they're pretty much fearless. So they would quite happily go into the Guardians area, and two of them got scratched pretty significantly in there, on the back and on the shoulders. One, I will never forget, has a big, long series of 3 scratches, went from her right shoulder down to the center of her back. And another one had a lateral scratch that just went beneath her shoulder blades all the way across from one side to the other.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's quite an experience.
And knowing this, they still go.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, paranormal investigators are like firefighters. They're the ones that run in when everybody else is running.
Right.
They won't be. They wouldn't be scared away by a man that was alive. They're not going to change that for one that's dead.
Right. That's awesome. I personally had a similar experience at Yorktown Memorial Hospital. That place was always busy for us here in Texas. So I appreciate you sharing that with me. Is there anything, any place that you would recommend people who are interested in the paranormal to go to if they haven't, where they can get pretty quality EVPs and stuff? I know most people can't spend 3 and 5 days at a location.
No, I understand that. There are several places I've gotten good results. As I said, Asylum 49 is one. Malvern Manor in Iowa, Farrar Elementary School, also in Iowa. And there's something about Iowa, I guess, because the Villisca Axe Murder House has also given me very good results. So when it comes to paranormal activity, that's one of my favorite states now. I get back to Iowa a couple of times a year to research.
Yeah.
Waverly Hills is talking about hospitals and medical facilities. Rarely disappoints visiting investigators. So that's a good location also. Let's see. There are so many great places. The Stanley Hotel in my native Colorado, or I should say my adopted state of Colorado. The Stanley is very, very active. And so I'd always recommend visiting there too.
Okay. I have a question about the Stanley. I did go by the Stanley actually recently. I did not get to take the ghost tour. I did kind of just walk the grounds.
Mm-hmm.
But I was wondering, is it more active like when you take the tour? When you go to certain areas or something? Because I just kind of walked the ground, took pictures and stuff, and it just seemed very nice. It didn't seem like a place where I would be like scared or anything. So I was wondering, what kind of energy is there?
Well, I worked at the Stanley for just shy of 3 years giving the ghost tours. And the tour guides there are the most knowledgeable and wonderful people. They also all deserve a raise if the boss is watching. Hard-working individuals. And they're the keepers of the ghost knowledge, the ghost lore. So they're the ones that keep the photographs and the stories and so forth and track this kind of stuff. I don't think you're any more likely to have an experience on a tour than you are anywhere else in the Stanley. But certain spots, certain parts of the hotel are more active.
Okay.
The concert hall by far is the biggest hotspot, followed, I would say, by the 4th floor.
Okay.
One of the most common complaints, or I should say from guests on the 4th floor, is the sound of children running through those hallways, because that's the floor where the children stayed when the Stanley first opened. It was entirely devoted to kids.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And what's interesting to me is that no child is ever on record as having died at the Stanley, not one. So one of you talked about how nice it felt. A good friend of mine, Aidan Sinclair, who was the illusionist at the Stanley for many years, had a theory about that. He always said this was kind of like Disneyland when the hotel opened in 1909. Kids would get to go there for the whole summer, and they would just play and have fun and be very, very happy and fond of the place. And we all know as paranormal investigators and enthusiasts that strong emotion is what tends to be keyed to a haunting, isn't it?
Right.
And thanks to TV, we all look at the negative side of things,
right.
Murder locations and battlefields, but places where people were so very happy and content,
right,
also can be very haunted for that reason. And I think that's what's going on at the hotel.
Right. I was actually going to say that. I was going to say maybe it's because it was a happy place for them, and that energy left its imprint
I think
throughout
you're then right. Yeah.
that floor. And that's great. Speaking of children, now, can you tell me why on most, I don't know if it's the TV or what, but I've even experienced this at most of the hospitals that I've been to, we've always picked up an EVP of a child.
Hmm.
With your years of experience doing this, why would that be? No matter where, what hospital it is, there's always like a child.
Well, I think in most hospitals you have a pediatric ward. You have children that came through there when they were sick, and not all of them made it out alive, unfortunately. So that's one possibility. I think going back to Asylum 49, my favorite hospital, the old Tooele Hospital, there are 3 children I know of which have been regularly encountered there that are said to have died at the hospital, and they're very playful. They seem to treat the place as their playground. They can run around through all of these rooms full of interesting stuff. I know there are people out there that say, and I don't have any strong opinion either way on this, but they'll say that whenever you encounter what seems to be a child, sometimes it's something more sinister pretending to be a child.
Right.
I've talked to a number of people whose opinions I respect a great deal that hold strongly to that opinion.
Right. And that's what I've heard. I've been doing this with my team for 8 years, and throughout that time, that was one of the things that we heard. If there's ever a child in a place that you wouldn't normally think there would be a child, be careful because it could be something negative, just pretending. And that's always been kind of scary when we have picked up voices like that.
Don't you think that holds true though with any spirit communication? You never quite know who you're talking to. It's kind of like the equivalent of the internet, right?
True.
You never really know who you're talking to at the other end unless you can actually see them. So I think it's a good thing to be cautious with any sort of spirit interaction, no matter who or what it looks like you're dealing with.
Right. Now, let me ask you a question. How long have you been a paranormal investigator?
I started in 1995 in my native England and continued that when I came to the US in 1999. So right now I'm at just coming up on 17 years. Oh, wait, no, that's terrible math. Hang on. Good Lord. I'm sorry. I'm coming up on 24 years as a paranormal investigator right now.
Yeah.
And back when I started, there was no paranormal TV. There were just books. So these days, you can't throw a rock in any major town without hitting a paranormal team. But back then, the small group I was with, we were the only people for miles.
Right.
And we would get cases referred to us by newspapers and occasionally the police who just didn't know where to turn.
Right.
Things have really changed in the past quarter century. I say quarter century, that feels so old.
Yeah, I turn on the TV now and it's like there's a new paranormal TV show like every other day. I'm like, you're kidding me, right? Another one?
It's definitely a boom right now in terms of the paranormal in the media, isn't it?
Yes. But I think it's fast. I mean, I love the fact that there are so many people that are interested in this now, that you couldn't really talk about these things if they were happening to you in your home, because that happened, to my family for years in Chicago. And then again here, when we moved here to Texas, I actually lived in a home that was haunted. And I was like, do I just like open the phone book and try to find the Ghostbusters? I mean, I don't know how this works, So I'm glad that there's so many people now that are talking about this and bringing this out.
And one of the nice things is that the interest people have, we soon, as you said, not everybody can find 5 days or 7 days to go move into a haunted location. We see more people that are going to an organized event for an evening, and they are helping to support keeping some of these historic places open.
Right. And there are, I don't know if you knew this, but like when we started, this is back about 8 years ago, just in Texas alone where we're at, there were over, I think it was about 250 paranormal teams in the state alone. And it didn't matter where we went or where we wanted to go, it was always booked. It's booked. It's booked. You can't, we had to wait months to be able to go somewhere. And those teams just drop off like flies, because they go
Yeah.
into it thinking it's what they see on TV. And when it's not, and they realize that some places is really boring. You're just sitting there for hours in the dark doing nothing but asking questions.
Well, anybody can buy a K2 meter, heaven help us, and just call themselves a paranormal investigator. It's not as if you can, get a degree at your local college or something like that anymore. Right. And so I think you have to be very careful and research the teams and investigators that you approach, because there are those that just do it for fun and for kicks, as opposed to seriously trying to help the people involved. Texas, I mean, you've got the Kling brothers, who are my favorite, I've got to say. Shout out to Brad and Barry, my favorite investigators in the state. But you guys have a great haunted history in Texas. I can't wait to get back there next spring. And I'm hoping to hit at least one haunted location while I'm there. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
I would love to do Yorktown Memorial, actually. That's always been on my bucket list.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
It's changed. It's changed because of all the flooding that has gone on here. I mean, I'm sure it's still just as active. Over time, it's deteriorated quite a bit. And I believe the last time we went, it was the first time that we actually had to wear masks.
Oh, dear.
To breathe. Yeah. However, it's still going. So.
Good.
Now let me ask you something. And this may come off as completely weird question, but while you were in England, do you think it's the same when it comes to paranormal investigating there and here? Is it the same? Do you understand my question?
Yeah, I kind of asked that before. Like, I hear this. Sometimes people will say, England's so much older, which it isn't.
Right.
I know what they mean. And they'll say, don't you have more of the kind of historic, are the hauntings different? And I say, no, people are people wherever you go. The phenomena's very similar in both countries. And the people that are interested in it, it's a very particular type of mindset. The kind of person that's watching this show right now, that I call them my tribe. You guys are my kind of people. Anybody who's weird enough to go sit in an abandoned, haunted building in the dark for hours, talking to thin air, is my kind of people. And I think you find them everywhere. You find that kind of person who's fascinated in the paranormal in every society, pretty much. They're all across Europe, they're throughout the rest of the world. I think we're all just fascinated by these phenomena and trying to answer that question of what happens when we die. So I don't think it's significantly different.
Now, let me ask you, what's the farthest that you've traveled to go to a haunted location?
I've operated exclusively within the UK and the US. So I generally will be happy going to either coast. I just got back from Fort Mifflin near Philadelphia, which is an old Revolutionary War fort. And I took that fort over for a week, and that was terrific. It's quite a distance. I just got back also from Indiana, and I was investigating the Monroe House there. And also around Illinois, I investigated the John Wayne Gacy haunting of the R Theater in Auburn. So I'm not beyond traveling on the road 1,000 miles, 1,500 miles to do it. I go to Gettysburg every year also. Probably my favorite haunted place in the world has got to be Gettysburg.
Right. And I had the opportunity to go there and investigate with the Kling brothers.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so that was a great experience for me. If there was some place that you can go that you haven't been, where would it be?
Oh, that's easy. Alcatraz.
Wow.
Always wanted to investigate Alcatraz. And I know you can do tours, but I would like to spend a night or preferably a week locked down at Alcatraz. Just the ghost stories that come out of there are still incredible to this day.
Right.
And of course, it's very difficult to get into.
Yeah. And I've heard a lot of stories of people just going on the tour there, having experiences on the regular tour. So I can't even imagine what it would be like to be able to stay there and investigate.
It's been done. I mean, some of the TV shows have been fortunate enough to do it. I would give my right arm to spend a week at Alcatraz, which, the residents would find that ironic. The inmates, wouldn't they? They spend so much time trying to get out, and people want to get in.
Right. Right. I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to talk to us. For anybody who's watching, Richard Estep was actually at our event last year. He was one of the speakers last year, and you are going to speak for us again next spring, correct?
Right. It was such a wonderful event. I had such a good time. Texans are some of my favorite people in the world, you know. And hanging out with all of you just kind of, it was the first time I spent a real amount of time in Texas and just fell in love with the place and the people. So I cannot wait to come back and talk ghosts with some of my favorite folks.
Awesome. And we really look forward to having you again. And again, thank you so much. Now, the TV shows that you have been on most recently are The Haunted Case Files, Haunted Hospitals, and Paranormal 911, correct?
That's right. And I'm just gearing up to go shoot the second season of Paranormal 911 in the next few weeks.
Awesome. So if anybody hasn't seen them, you need to check those shows out. I have personally watched these shows, and I love them. And every time I see you on there, I'm like, I know them.
Yeah, a lot of folks work really hard on those shows. So a big shout out to the people that make them, the people behind the camera and the people in front of the camera too. They work super hard to give us a good experience.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Richard, for doing this little episode with me, and I appreciate it. And I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Looking forward to it, Hazel, and I'll see you in Texas next year, if not before.
Thank you so much.
Take care and good night.
Good night.